Kameda, a male student, was seen lowering his head when his teacher asked him sharply about his career goals after he wrote horned beetle on his career survey. The teacher couldn't understand why Kameda would choose horned beetles as his future aspiration. Kameda tried to explain that if he gave a horned beetle to children, it would make them very happy. The teacher then concluded that maybe Kameda wanted to be someone who brings happiness to others. Kameda agreed, but admitted he hadn't found a more specific goal yet. The teacher then suggested that Kameda become a manga artist. She said he could create a manga about horned beetles. According to the teacher, boys like kabuto beetles, and the female character could be a honeybee captured by the antagonist, a grasshopper. So in the story, the horned beetle would be the hero who saves the heroine, the bee. The teacher continued to share more of her imaginative story while Kameda listened, gazing out the window. Later, Kameda's friend, Nanasaki Ikuo, was worried about Kameda after hearing he was called in to discuss his career survey. Nanasaki assumed Kameda must have written something foolish. Kameda denied it. While drinking a canned drink that Nanasaki gave him, Kameda said that after talking with their teacher, he realized he needed to think more seriously about his future career. However, Kameda still had no clear idea of what he wanted to do after graduating from high school, whether to go to college or start working. Naturally, Nanasaki became concerned and urged Kameda to decide on his future soon. Suddenly, a group of students chatting loudly caught their attention. They were also discussing their recent career surveys. Among them was Araki, a student with a guaranteed future, as he planned to take over his family's business. This made Kameda feel envious. Nanasaki reminded Kameda to focus on studying for their final exams. In class, a girl named Tsuneki was sitting on a desk. She and her friends were also talking about their future plans. Not long after, Kameda entered the classroom and walked towards Tsuneki. Tsuneki stretched her arms above her head, and she almost accidentally hit Kameda, who was standing behind her. Surprised, Tsuneki turned around and saw Kameda. Kameda said he wanted to sit down. It turned out that the desk Tsuneki was sitting on was Kameda's. Tsuneki apologized and moved away. She actually knew it was Kameda's desk, but she wanted to tease him. Kameda was shocked and blushed. Tsuneki remarked that Kameda's expression was too honest. Kameda could only sigh as he waited for them to leave. As he looked at his desk, Kameda noticed the faint warmth left from Tsuneki's sitting slowly disappearing. He stared at it intently. When he looked up, he realized another girl was watching him with a disdainful expression, as if she knew what he had just done. Naturally, Kameda was startled and quickly turned his face away, pretending he knew nothing. That night at home, Kameda and his older sister Tomo were playing a board game. Tomo lost the game and thought it was really strange. She stopped playing and got up, then asked Kameda how his final exams were going since their mom had scolded him during midterms for his poor grades. Kameda replied that he had started thinking about his future and for now, he wanted to try harder. Smiling, Tomo said she was ready to help Kameda if he needed it. The next day, Kameda was already in the cafeteria. He noticed how crowded it was and felt confused about where to sit. Then he saw Tsuneki using her VIP seat along with her friends. As Kameda was still deciding where to sit, Tsuneki suddenly waved at him. Tsuneki asked Kameda if it was true that he wanted to become a manga artist. One of Tsuneki's friends mentioned that Ms. Onagata, the teacher, had said Kameda would be perfect as a manga artist. Tsuneki then commented that Ms. Onagata was just guessing since Kameda had never drawn a manga before. Seeing that Tsuneki had been standing for a while, Yuki offered her a seat. After they finished their lunch, Tsuneki jokingly told Kameda that if he ever became a manga artist, his pen name should be Depraved Sensei. This was because Kameda had leered at the seat Tsuneki had just vacated. Kameda was shocked to realize that Tsuneki knew about it. He quickly turned his face away. Yuko and Yuki also chimed in, saying Kameda would make a great erotic manga artist. Kameda, of course, denied it. He explained that he was terrible at literature and always had to ask Ikuo for help. Because they were always together, Yuki and Yuko teased that Kameda and Ikuo might be a couple. Naturally, Kameda denied all of it, asking them not to make baseless accusations. Later in the afternoon at the library, Kameda and Ikuo were seen writing something. Suddenly, Tsuneki appeared and startled them both. She approached Ikuo and asked him to teach her classical literature as well. Tsuneki confessed that she was terrible at classical literature, just like Kameda. She kept pleading with Ikuo, promising to buy him 3 cans of his favorite Cocoa Panda. Kameda tried to signal Ikuo by shaking his head, suggesting that he shouldn't accept the offer. But Tsuneki noticed and gave Kameda a cold look. Reluctantly, Kameda said he didn't mind. Finally, Ikuo agreed to help her. At another time during PE class, two boys were caught spying on the basketball court where Tsuneki and the others were playing. They admired Tsuneki's skills, but suddenly a woman named Sanjaruze caught them in the act and ordered them to leave. The two boys immediately ran away, passing Kemida, who was resting under a tree, while shouting, "I'm gonna ask Tsuneki out and go trekking with her." It turned out that one of them was the president of the hiking club, and Kemida thought he was really obsessed with Tsuneki. Ikuo, who was beside Kemida, asked, "What about you?" Kemida responded that he didn't really like Tsuneki because she always teased him. Ikuo remarked that it was better to be toyed with than hated because if Tsuneki ever hated Kemida, then all the girls in class would eventually become his enemies. Tsuneki was the center of attention in their class, and Kemida felt like he was a completely different species from her. Ikuo stood up and mentioned that he had once seen Tsuneki walking with an older man who had a beard but looked too young to be her father. Ikuo's brother had seen them and assumed they were dating. Kemida then wondered if Tsuneki preferred older men. Recently, Kemida had been studying diligently, both at school and at home. As the final exams approached, he and his friends took them seriously. When the results were announced, Kemida had a surprisingly high rank, making his friends envious. Yukie, who saw the results, was especially annoyed because she ranked lower than Kemida. Just then, a childhood friend of Kemida named Kyuko approached him. She commented that Kemida had become quite popular among the girls. Kemida denied it, saying they were just talking about the exam results. Kyuko then asked Kemida to teach her next time before she walked away. Kemida smiled, saying he hadn't felt this accomplished in a long time, and thanked Ikuo for helping him study. Ikuo then mentioned that soon in the summer, there would be a summer course he planned to attend. He invited Kemida to join him. The course would involve 2 weeks of studying at a hotel in the mountains. Kemida was shocked at the thought of spending 2 weeks there and couldn't give Ikuo a definite answer. He said he just wanted to enjoy his time off for now. Later that afternoon, Kemida, Ikuo, and Araki were seen leaving an arcade. They were talking about someone they couldn't beat. Araki then mentioned that he would be going on a 3-day trip with some part-time workers during the summer. He said he actually wanted to stay home and take care of his rabbits, but the girls in the second-year class said they wouldn't go unless he joined. Ikuo then asked if that meant some of his classmates were going too. Araki tried to recall who would be joining the trip. He mentioned Yukie, Yuko, and Tsuneki. Hearing this, Ikuo and Kemida were surprised and exchanged glances. Kemida couldn't believe they were going on the trip. He wanted to ask Araki more about it, but Ikuo interrupted. Araki then asked if they wanted to join the trip too. Ikuo quickly declined, teasing that Kemida was just jealous because Araki was so popular with the second-year girls. Araki then wanted to play some more and headed back into the arcade. Kemida and Ikuo continued their conversation, wondering why Tsuneki was going on a trip with another guy when she already had a boyfriend. Ikuo just laughed, thinking that if Kemida had told Araki the truth and they ended up not going on the trip, the second-year girls would surely hate Kemida. That evening, while Kemida was walking home, he noticed a new bakery. He decided to buy a cake for his older sister. As he looked towards the door, he saw Tsuneki working there. Kemida also noticed a bearded man approaching her. This might be the guy Ikuo talked about yesterday. Seeing this, Kemida was impressed by Tsuneki, as she always seemed to be a few steps ahead of him. Kemida then called Ikuo and told him about his decision regarding the upcoming summer course. When Kemida got home, he was busy preparing his things for the summer course. Tomo noticed how busy Kemida was. He explained that this summer course was a famous prep course, attracting students from all over the country. This made him a little nervous since he was only going with Ikuo. However, Tomo admired Kemida for being willing to spend his summer vacation studying. Tomo then gave him a pack of mushroom chocolates as a gift. Kemida was very grateful to her. The next day, Kemida took a bus to the hotel where the summer course would be held. At the hotel, some students were already there, amazed that the organizers had rented out an entire hotel for the event. The hotel even had a swimming pool. Upon arriving at the hotel, Kemida was so enthusiastic and excited. Then, by chance, when Kemida looked to the other side of the hotel, his eyes focused on a girl wearing a doTERRA. doTERRA is a type of Japanese clothing, but when he turned to tell Ikuo, the girl was no longer there. Ikuo then mentioned that there were stories about the ghost of an exam participant. Maybe the girl Kemida had just seen was that ghost. Kemida immediately panicked. Then an adult man made an announcement to all the participants to move to the conference room, where they would be given further instructions on how to use the facilities in the schedule. The participants walked towards the conference room. However, one participant was seen trying to leave the room. Unexpectedly, the adult man grabbed the participant's shoulder and dragged him back into the room. Kameda and Ikuo, seeing this, realized that some people had been forced to come here as well. That night, Kameda was curled up in the corner, feeling down because he was in last place for the placement test. He then asked Ikuo about his results. Ikuo was at the top. Kameda was frustrated and felt inferior because he had thought he was on par with everyone else, considering they were all high school students. Since it was late, Kameda then went to his room to sleep. In the room, Kameda continued to beat himself up. He thought that maybe he shouldn't have come here. If he had decided to go to the beach with Tsuneki and the others, they might have become closer. Kameda then fantasized about being at the beach, being fed by Tsuneki, who was wearing a swimsuit. Kameda then slapped his own face, reasserting his determination to study there. With newfound resolve, he opened the window and shouted that he wouldn't give up. Then suddenly, a hand reached out, grabbing the bottom of the window as if trying to hold on and enter the room. Kameda was startled and backed away. From the window, someone began to peek inside. Terrified, Kameda remembered the ghost story Ikuo had mentioned earlier that day. The person then struggled to enter Kamina's room. She crawled towards Kameda, saying she was cold, and asked Kameda to help her. The woman tried to reach for Kameda, who looked very scared in the middle of the room. All Kameda could do was scream. The woman continued moving closer to Kameda. He was still confused and scared. Then, unexpectedly, the woman only grabbed a towel and asked if she could use it. After she raised her head and looked at Kameda, it turned out that she was Tsuneki. Both of them stood there, frozen, staring at each other. The atmosphere soon returned to normal as Tsuneki started drying her wet hair with Kameda's towel. Kameda, still uncertain, asked if she was really Tsuneki and not a ghost. Nonchalantly, Tsuneki stretched out her leg towards Kameda and told him to look at her all he wanted to prove it to himself. While still stretching her leg, Tsuneki asked why Kameda was attending the summer course at that hotel. She assumed Kameda must have made some mistake. Kameda then explained that he was only there because Ikuo had invited him. Surprised, Tsuneki realized that Kameda was there to study. Now Kameda was the one feeling curious, wondering what had happened to Tsuneki to end up in such a situation. Tsuneki responded that she had been kidnapped and taken there by car. Kameda's imagination started to run wild. He then asked who had kidnapped her. With a bit of irritation, Tsuneki revealed that it was none other than her own parents. Tsuneki had been caught working a part-time job, so she was grounded for the entire summer break. When she insisted on going to a group date trip with Yuki and Yuko, her parents were furious and brought her to this hotel in the middle of the woods. Kameda sighed deeply. He had suspected that Tsuneki was lying about going on a vacation with her family. Tsuneki then argued that no girl would easily spill the details of her romantic escapades. Besides, there was no benefit for her in telling Kameda about the specifics of her summer trip. Tsuneki was starting to get a little angry. Kameda then asked if Tsuneki was planning to hike down the mountain dressed like that. Tsuneki confirmed it. She also complained that there wasn't a single bus stop around. Her parents had also confiscated her phone, so she had no choice but to wait for the rain to stop, but then she ran away after being attacked by a wild deer. Without thinking, she immediately climbed in through the window when she saw it was open. Kameda noticed water seeping from Tsuneki's pants, soaking the chair she was sitting on. He just looked at her, feeling a bit perverted. When Tsuneki glanced at Kameda, she suddenly realized and quickly stood up, apologizing for wetting his chair. Kameda also apologized, saying he wasn't thinking anything weird. They both stared at each other in awkward silence until, suddenly, Tsuneki sneezed. Kameda quickly handed her a tissue, suggesting she change her clothes before she caught a cold. Tsuneki thanked Kameda, but unexpectedly, all the clothes she had brought in her bag were also wet. As Tsuneki checked the contents of her bag, Kameda secretly tried to sneak a glance at her chest. He was startled when Tsuneki caught him. In the sudden movement, Kameda twisted his back and winced in pain. He realized it was karma. Since all of Tsuneki's clothes were wet, Kameda had the idea to borrow clothes from the other girls there. Tsuneki then reminded him that if it was late at night and a guy came asking to borrow a girl's clothes, the girl would undoubtedly be terrified. Kameda was left feeling confused. Tsuneki noticed a set of PD clothes piled on the table. She began using her hands to measure Kameda's body and her own, coming to the conclusion that their body sizes were almost the same. She then asked Kameda if she could borrow his PE clothes. Kameda felt awkward, knowing that his PE clothes were still sweaty. But without hesitation, Tsuneki sniffed the clothes and said they didn't smell that bad. Kameda's face turned red. It was the first time a girl had ever sniffed his clothes. He reluctantly allowed Tsuneki to take the clothes. Sumeki thanked Kameda and walked out of his room carrying his PE clothes. Kameda still felt weird watching Sumeki leave his room with his PE uniform. He was staring blankly at her walking down the hallway until he quickly retreated back into his room when two other guys walked by staring at him. Kameda was sitting on the toilet doing his business when suddenly Tsuneki appeared and started sniffing him. Naturally, Kameda was confused, wondering why Tsuneki was doing that. But she didn't answer and continued sniffing him even lower down his body. Kameda screamed, begging her to stop. He woke up suddenly, shocked. It was all just a dream. The next morning, Kameda walked down the hallway, rubbing his head, puzzled about why he had such a weird dream the night before. He entered the classroom but didn't see Tsuneki there. The atmosphere in the class felt very serious, making it hard for Kameda to fit in. A short while later, it was finally break time and Kameda was already in the cafeteria. He had finished eating and told Ikuo that he hadn't slept well last night, explaining what happened. Ikuo was shocked, surprised to hear that Tsuneki had also come to that place. But Kameda was confused to learn that Tsuneki wasn't in Ikuo's class either. Not long after, Tsuneki appeared near them and greeted them. They sat together, joined by another girl named Miko, who had been with Tsuneki in the Save Our Scores class. Apparently, it was just the two of them in that class. Kameda was surprised as he had never heard of a class like that. Tsuneki confidently said it was an exclusive class just for the two of them. Miko explained that she and Tsuneki had been labeled as problematic students and were locked away after yesterday's test. Tsuneki was grateful that Miko was in the class with her. Otherwise, she would have been alone with that old guy with the bamboo sword. Ikuo understood that Tsuneki was talking about the instructor. He also commented that the instructor had quite a distinctive style. Mako chimed in, suggesting that maybe the instructor was a kind-hearted teacher. Tsuneki looked upset as she had been punished with cleaning the women's restroom after being caught trying to escape from the hotel. She then asked Kameda if she could borrow his PE clothes until she finished cleaning the restroom. Kameda's face turned red, surprised that his clothes would be used by Tsuneki to clean the women's restroom. Ikuo found it strange that Kameda's face looked oddly happy. Mako then suggested to Tsuneki that she wash the clothes in a coin laundry. Tsuneki had no idea there was a coin laundry there and immediately started planning another escape attempt once her clothes dried. Tsuneki then asked Kameda to hold out his hand. He did, and Tsuneki handed him 3 pieces of candy. She had noticed him yawning earlier and gave him the candy to help him stay awake during class. Kameda was touched and thanked her. He had been feeling frustrated about his low test scores the day before, but after that moment, he felt motivated to keep pushing until the end. Kameda thought to himself that when the second semester started, he might not be able to have these kinds of conversations with Tsuneki anymore. Later in the Save Our Scores class, Tsuneki and Mako were seen working on problems at the chalkboard under the strict supervision of their grumpy instructor. They studied in the classroom until dusk, after which Tsuneki cleaned the women's restroom by herself. She even got scolded by the instructor for trying to escape earlier. Afterwards, Tsuneki met up with Mako. Seeing how exhausted Tsuneki looked, Mako suggested they take a bath and head to bed early. Tsuneki agreed, but before that, she asked Mako to help her learn how to use the coin laundry. Tsuneki admitted that she had never washed her own clothes at home, as her mom had always done it for her. This was her first time doing laundry on her own, and she thanked Mako for helping her. Mako, on the other hand, felt a bit jealous of Tsuneki, saying that one day she also wanted to do laundry for her boyfriend. Mako had heard rumors that Kameda and Tsuneki were dating. There was also another rumor circulating among the participants that Tsuneki was a slut who walked around in her boyfriend's PE clothes. Hearing that, Tsuneki jokingly pretended that she really was dating Kameda and said he had some weird tastes. She even added that Kameda had been pretty brutal with her the night before. Mako believed everything Tsuneki said. In another place, Kameda was seen selecting a canned drink from a vending machine. Suddenly, he overheard 2 girls gossiping about the slut from Kibudo, who was walking around in PE clothes. They also mentioned that she was cozying up to her boyfriend during lunch in the cafeteria, and they were really annoyed by it. Kameda, hearing this conversation, began to suspect that they were talking about Tsuneki. He quickly hid behind the vending machine. The 2 girls continued bad-mouthing the situation, saying it was distracting them from their studies. One of them even claimed to have seen her coming out of her boyfriend's room soaking wet last night, as if she was showing off after fooling around in his room. The 2 girls kept talking about it while putting coins into the vending machine. Kameda, who couldn't take it anymore, stepped out of his hiding spot. Of course, the 2 girls were shocked and suspicious, thinking that Kameda had been doing something indecent at the vending machine. Kameda then explained that the person they were talking about had actually been chased by a deer and brought to that place against her will. Naturally, the two girls didn't believe him and were confused by his words. Kameda tried again to clarify, saying that he had no kind of romantic relationship with Tsuneki. He had only lent her his PE clothes because she didn't have any spare clothes. Suddenly, Tsuneki appeared in front of them. Still acting strange, she pretended to be a slut and Kameda's girlfriend. With an overly sweet tone, Tsuneki handed back the PE clothes she had borrowed from Kameda. Meiko explained that Tsuneki had washed the clothes for the first time, just for Kameda. Tsuneki continued acting weird, making Kameda wonder if she had hit her head while cleaning the restroom. Tsuneki then said that she had cleaned every drop of Kameda's mess from the PE clothes. Seeing this, the two girls became even more suspicious, assuming that Kameda and Tsuneki had done something inappropriate the night before. Kameda tried to explain the truth and clarify what had really happened, but the girls still didn't believe him and walked away. However, they had forgotten the drinks they ordered from the vending machine. Kameda grabbed them and handed the drinks back to the girls, who became embarrassed and thanked him. Once the girls were out of sight, Kameda approached Tsuneki and asked what had just happened. Tsuneki replied that nothing had happened to her. Kameda then explained that he had tried to clear up the misunderstanding the two girls were talking about. Hearing Kameda's explanation, Meiko finally understood that Tsuneki had just been acting and wasn't really like the rumors had said. Suddenly, Tsuneki grabbed Kameda's hand and told Meiko they'd see each other later. She pulled Kameda along until they reached a room. Tsuneki then handed over the PE clothes she had borrowed. As Kameda took them, he noticed they were still warm, as if they had just been taken off Tsuneki's body. He thanked her for washing them. Kameda also felt confused as to why they had to hide in that room. Tsuneki explained that she didn't want any more strange rumors to spread. Kameda mentioned the rumor about them doing inappropriate things in a room together, which made Tsuneki furious. She said everyone was probably just stressed from too much studying. Tsuneki apologized, admitting she might have gone too far in playing with Meiko's misunderstanding, causing Kameda to end up in trouble because of her. Kameda then asked if it was true that Tsuneki had just washed clothes for the first time. Tsuneki confirmed it. Kameda continued, asking if Tsuneki rarely did housework. Tsuneki said that sometimes she made midnight snacks. Kameda then shared that his older sister occasionally made midnight snacks for him too. Tsuneki said she was pretty confident in her cooking skills. Kameda just smiled at this, which made Tsuneki mad. She wanted to prove her skills. Tsuneki decided to make a midnight snack for Kameda that very night. She would try to make it with whatever ingredients were available. And since there wasn't an apron, she asked to borrow Kameda's PE clothes again. She said it would be dangerous if hot oil splattered on the clothes she was currently wearing. Blushing, Kameda said he'd like to invite Ikuo as well. Tsuneki then left. Kameda found Tsuneki's behavior strange, especially since she seemed so down yesterday. Maybe, no matter the situation, Tsuneki could always enjoy herself. Later that night, Meiko and Tsuneki were in the kitchen preparing food. Meiko mentioned that secretly making a midnight snack was making her heart race. Tsuneki successfully cooked the meal and served it at the dining table. Kameda and the others were ready to eat. Tsuneki proudly said she had made a Spanish omelette, something she learned at work. Luckily, Meiko had a good relationship with the cafeteria lady, so when Meiko asked for permission to make the snack, she was more than happy to oblige. For Kameda, this was the first time he had eaten food made by a girl. Naturally, he felt thrilled, especially since the girl was Tsuneki. Kameda thought that ever since yesterday, unexpected things just kept happening. Everyone there enjoyed the food Tsuneki had prepared. Meiko, Kameda, and Ikuo all praised the meal, saying it was delicious. Tsuneki was happy and relieved to hear their compliments, as this was also her first time cooking for others. Kameda said he was impressed with Tsuneki, admitting he never expected her to have such a skill. This flattered Tsuneki. Meiko then teased that since Tsuneki had washed Kameda's clothes and cooked for him, it was like Kameda already had a wife. Kameda was, of course, shocked to hear this and began choking. But it didn't stop there. Tsuneki, with a mischievous smile, asked Kameda to marry her. This made Kameda choke even harder. Ikuo chimed in, saying Kameda was being overly dramatic, and Tsuneki agreed, adding that this was exactly why she always wanted to tease him. After they finished eating, Kameda stood by the door while Tsuneki washed the dishes they had used. Kameda felt guilty because Tsuneki not only cooked, but was also cleaning up afterward. Tsuneki said it was no big deal since she was used to washing dishes at her job. She then mentioned that she would soon be leaving the hotel. Not only did she not want to stay there, many of her things hadn't been brought along. Kamina then jokingly suggested that Tsuneki could just wear the outfit that showed off her belly button, as he thought it suited her. Kamina even said he liked seeing Tsuneki's cute belly button. Tsuneki was, of course, surprised and flattered by Kamina's comment, but she also felt that wearing such an outfit would make her look bold and attention-grabbing. Kamina then told her he'd keep lending her his PE clothes, so there was no need for her to run away from the hotel. He said it would be dangerous if she got chased by a deer again like the night before. Tsuneki, however, didn't pay much attention to Kamina's advice. Kamina seemed very concerned about her. Tsuneki then mentioned that because the weather forecast for that night was bad, she decided to stay at the hotel a little longer. Hearing this, Kamina smiled with relief. They then parted ways and headed to their own rooms.